Okay, this is the video lecture on dialogue. This handout is attached to this content module, and these are the things that we're going to talk about in preparation for you doing the dialogue activity. Um, Dialogue is something that is hard to write that is very hard to write well. It usually takes a lot of practice to actually be able to do it well. Um, and it was my biggest criticism in graduate school was that my dialogue wasn't very good, and it took me years to really figure out how to do it. And the best thing I can teach you, the best advice I can give you, is to really listen to the way people speak to each other, because often we don't. And when you actually listen to the way people speak to each other, you get a sense of how to write dialogue. And that's one of the options for the dialogue activity. So with dialogue, uh, people speak in disconnected dialogue is what we call it. Often people speak selfishly across purposes. Um, Most often, when people are speaking to each other, they're not actually listening. They're thinking of what they want to say next. And this is something that you need to sort of build into your dialogue. I'm going to show you something here. So this is a page from my first book, and I just want to kind of show you something. So here, the one character is going on a rant, okay? And then it's broken up with also, you need to break up your dialogue with um, description, with body language, facial expressions. We're going to get to all of that. So here, the one character is going on a rant. And then it ends with, she shifts her gaze out the window. There's some body language. Why can't you see that? And then the narrator is giving us some description. And then down here, the narrator says this is right where the werewolf sightings were in the 70s. So it's completely disconnected from this rant up here. But it still relates a point. It still makes sense in the dialogue. It's just, you have to think of the way that our thoughts sort of ramble on. And also, when dialogue's disconnected, it creates tension that the reader can feel. It creates almost a power struggle. It's not necessarily arguing, but most of the time when we're speaking, we're trying to prove our point. There's almost always an argumentative or persuasive element to the way we speak to each other. So that power struggle adds tension. Leave questions hanging unanswered. In that example I just showed you, the one character said, "Why can't you see that?" And the tense answer is something that's completely unrelated. This also adds tension. So a really easy example of, you don't always do this. Sometimes you need to give straight replies. Sometimes you feel that a tense answer is the best, or sometimes that describing the inner world of the character is the best, or the narrator. So an example of this would be something like, did you walk the dogs? A straight reply would be, yes, I walked the dogs. A tense answer would be something like, did you walk the dogs? Well, they're your dogs. So it's not answering yes or no, it's not a straight reply, but it creates tension. And then the inner world of the character is usually some kind of a random thought, a thought that seems random, but it's along the same vein. So something like, did you walk the dogs? The character might think, or they might say, instead of when one character says, "Did you walk the dogs?" the other character might say, "Did you have sex with my friend?" Something like that. It reveals the inner world of the character, and it also adds tension. Body language and facial expressions. You always want to build in body language and facial expressions into your dialogue. Visual movement connects the reader to the action. So in that one example from my book, she shifts her gaze out the window. That connects the reader to the action that's happening in the scene. And most human communication is nonverbal, so facial expression and body language reveals a lot. When you shift your gaze away from somebody, it tells you something about that character or about that moment or the action of the story. And one of the tips that I was told to do in graduate school, and that that I think you guys should do is, watch people just make a list of the gestures. If they nod or if they cross their arms, if they shrug, if they roll their eyes, all of these gestures mean something, or can mean something, or can connect the reader to the moment in some way. Um, Utility phrases. What a utility phrase is sort of, uh, you know, it's what your character says when they don't know what to say. So think of moments, and this can be anything from just saying I don't know to it could be, it might even just be body language. I know that when I get nervous, I use my hands a lot. Um, I look away a lot. So think about what you do or say when you don't know what to say or do. And this can reveal a lot about the character. It can add tension. And this is also a way of humanizing your characters to the reader, making them almost more sympathetic. Dialogue attribution. This is something that a lot of students have issues with. Let me go back here and try to find. So, dialogue attribution is something like, she said or he said. Um, and a lot of students build in dialogue attribution all of the time when you really don't need it. So here in this example, um, this scene is just two people, is the main character and his girlfriend, and they're speaking. So we don't need attribution because it's only two people speaking, and the reader can figure out who's saying what if you're writing it well. Um, and instead of always saying she said or he said, uh, uh, you can. I tend to use my strategy is to use body language or some kind of internal thought. So my mind reels, I want a Percocet or three. I understand why you want to change this place, but you can't. So, although, this is telling us that it's the narrator thinking this, and that it's a subtle hint that the narrator's saying this. Um, and then here, I thought you didn't want to talk about this. This is the girlfriend, Anna, speaking. But we can put it together who's speaking, so I don't need to say, I thought you didn't want to talk about this, Anna said. Um, Only use dialogue attribution when you absolutely need it. And it's always, I thought you didn't want to talk about this, Anna said. It's not said Anna. That's like the 17th century way of writing it. Nobody writes it that way, so just don't do it. Um, Let me go back to the handout. Formatting and style. We talked about both of those sort of, but one thing, and I'm just going to make an edit here. So you're not making any sense. If you're going to do it this way, it would be comma, close the quotation, and a set. Period. It's one sentence. It's not two sentences. It's not period and a set. Okay. Or you can put it in Anna said, comma. You're not making any sense. If you do it this way, this is capitalized because it's a new thought. Some people will make this a lowercase y. It really doesn't matter, but it's going to prompt you to make it uppercase. But most often you see dialogue attribution at the end. Or one last thing, when you have a long piece of dialogue, something like this, you want to break it up with body language. You don't want it to be a long monologue. You want it broken up. So we're all lost, Ryan, our entire generation. She fidgets in her seat, positioning herself in a way that the direction of her raging stare cannot be misinterpreted. And then we go through some more dialogue. She pauses. More dialogue. She shifts her gaze out the window. More dialogue. So make sure you break it up. Build in those visual cues for your reader. It will help them follow it. And just practice dialogue. Practice writing it. That's what this dialogue activity is for. Listen to the way people speak to each other. Take notes. Spy on people. Eavesdrop. Listen to the way people interact. That's what's going to help you the most. And like I said, this handout is attached